Once upon a time, a very long time ago now, about last Friday, Winnie the Pooh lived in a forest all by himself under the name of Sanders. "What does under the name mean?" asked Christopher Robin. "It means he had a name over the door in gold letters and lived under it." Winnie the Pooh wasn't quite sure, said Christopher Robin. "Now I am," said a growly voice. "Then I will go on," said I. One day when he was out walking, he came to an open place in the middle of the forest, and in the middle of this place was a large oak tree, and from the top of the tree there came a loud buzzing noise. Winnie the Pooh sat down in front of the tree, put his head between his paws, and began to think. "First of all," he said to himself, "that buzzing noise means something. You don't get a buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing, without it meaning something. If there's a buzzing noise, someone's making a buzzing noise. And the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know of is because you're a bee." Then he thought another long time and said, "And the only reason for being a bee that I know of is making honey." And then he got up and said, "And the only reason for making honey, as far as I can see, is so that I can eat it." So he began to climb the tree. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed, and he sang a little song to himself. It went like this. "Isn't it funny how bears like honey? Buzz, buzz, buzz. I wonder why he does." Then he climbed a little further, and a little further, and then just a little further. By that time he had thought of another song. "It's a very funny thought that if bears were bees, they'd build their little nests at the bottom of trees. And that being so, if the bees were bears, we shouldn't have to climb up all these stairs." He was getting rather tired by this time, so that is why he sang a complaining song. He was nearly there now, and if he just stood on that branch... Crack! "Oh, help!" said Pooh, as he dropped 10 feet to the branch below him. "If only I hadn't," he said, as he bounced 20 feet to the next branch. "You see, what I meant to do," he explained, as he turned head over heels and crashed onto another branch 30 feet below. "What I meant to do... Of course it was rather," he admitted, as he slithered very quickly down the next 6 branches. "It all comes," he decided, as a goodbye to the last branch, spun round 3 times and flew gracefully into a gorse bush. "It all comes of liking honey so much. Oh, help." He crawled out of the gorse bush, brushed the pickles from his nose, and began to think again. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. "Was it me?" said Christopher Robin in an awed voice, hardly daring to believe it. "That was you." Christopher Robin said nothing, but his eyes got larger and larger, and his face got pinker and pinker. So Christopher Robin went round to his friend so Winnie the Pooh even went round to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived behind a green door in another part of the forest. "Good morning, Christopher Robin," he said. "Good morning, Winnie the Pooh," said you. "I wonder if you got such a thing as a balloon about you." "A balloon?" "Yes. I just said to myself coming along, I wonder if Christopher Robin has such a thing as a balloon about him. I just said it to myself, thinking of balloons and wondering." "What do you want a balloon for?" you said. Winnie the Pooh looked around to see that nobody was listening, put a paw to his mouth, and said in a deep whisper, "Honey." "But you don't get honey with balloons." "I do," said Pooh. "Well, it just happened to be that you were at a party the day before at the house of your friend Piglet, and you had balloons at the party. You had a big green balloon, and one of Rabbit's relations had a big blue one, and he had left it behind, being really too young to go to a party at all. And so you brought the green one and the blue one home with you. Which one would you like?" asked Pooh. He put his head between his paws and thought very carefully. "It's like this. When you're after honey with a balloon, the great thing is not to let the bees know you're coming. Now, if you have a green balloon, they might think you are part of the tree, and then not notice you. And if you have a blue balloon, they might think you are only part of the sky, and not notice you. The question is, which is more likely? Wouldn't they notice you underneath the balloon?" you asked. They might or they might not, said Winnie the Pooh. You never can tell with bees. He thought for a moment and said, I shall try and look like a small black cloud. That will deceive them. Then you had better have the blue balloon, he said, and so it was decided. Well, you both went out with the blue balloon, and you took your gun with you just in case, as you always did. And Winnie the Pooh went to a very muddy place that he knew of, and rolled until he was black all over. And then, when the balloon was blown up as big, and you and Pooh were holding onto the string, you let go suddenly, and Pooh floated gracefully into the air and stayed there, level with the top of the tree, about 20 feet from it. Hooray! You shouted. Isn't that fine? Shouted Pooh down to you. What do I look like? You look like a bear holding onto a balloon, you said. Not, said Blue anxiously, not like a small cloud in the blue sky. Not very much. Ah well, perhaps from here it looks different. And, as I say, you never can tell with bees. There was no wind to blow him nearer to the tree, so there he stayed, and could see the honey. He could see the honey, he could smell the honey, but he couldn't quite reach the honey. After a while, he called down to you. Christopher Robin, he said in a loud whisper. Hello? I think the bees suspect something. What sort of thing? I don't know, but something tells me they're suspicious. Perhaps they think you're after their honey. It might be that. You never can tell with bees. There was another little silence, and then he called down to you again. Christopher Robin? Yes? Have you an umbrella at your house? I think so. I wish you would bring it here and walk up and down with it, and look at me every now and then say, Tut tut, it looks like rain. I think if you did that, it would help with the deception which we are practicing with these bees. Well, you laughed to yourself, silly old bear. But you didn't say it out loud because you were so fond of him, and you went home for your umbrella. Oh, there you are, called Winnie the Pooh as soon as you got back to the tree. I was beginning to get anxious. I have discovered that the bees are now definitely suspicious. Shall I put my umbrella up? You said. Yes, but wait a moment. We must be practical. The important bee to deceive is the queen bee. Can you see which is the queen bee from down there? Nope. A pity. Well, if you walk up and down with your umbrella saying, Tut tut, it looks like rain, I shall do what I can by singing a little cloud song, such as a cloud might sing. Go! So, while you walked up and down and wondered if it would rain, Winnie the Pooh sang this song. I'm going to take a little break. Hold on.
The time is now 15 minutes past 9. Megan is exhausted and needs a Red Bull. And I can either take over or I can read something completely different, which Megan will indicate in the next 5 seconds. She's pointed at the book. We are going to read something a bit different in tone now, as Megan puts a W up for the Wu-Tang Clan. She is a big fan of the Wu-Tang Clan. It's her favourite. She's going to get the 36 chambers and offer them back to the stream. That'll be quite the read. But on the other hand, Notes from the Underground, Chapter 2. Now I want to tell you, gentlemen, whether you want to hear it or not, why I couldn't even manage to make myself into an insect. I tell you solemnly that I often wanted to become an insect, but didn't even manage that. I swear to you, gentlemen, that to be too much aware of things is an illness, a real, genuine illness. For ordinary purposes, it would be quite enough for people to have half or even quarter of the awareness that falls to the lot of an educated individual in our wretched 19th century. An individual, what's more, with the additional misfortune of living in Petersburg, the most abstract and premeditated of cities in the globe. There are premeditated and unpremeditated cities. It, for instance, would be quite enough to be as aware as so-called spontaneous and decisive people. I bet you think I'm writing all of this in order to boast or to make fun of decisive people. And that I'm boasting in bad taste too, rattling my sword like my officer. You didn't get that bit, that was in Chapter 1, but Chapter 1 doesn't have to go on. But gentlemen, who wants to admit in his own infirmities, let alone boast and glory in them? But why just me? Everyone does it. Everyone shows off their infirmities, and I possibly more than anyone else. Don't let's argue, my point is absurd. But, in spite of it, I'm firmly convinced that not just excessive awareness, but any awareness at all, is in itself an illness. I insist on that. Let's put it aside for a minute. Tell me this. Why did it sometimes happen that just at the moment, yes,